the local newspaper, the New Orleans Times-Picayune, had a series of articles called Together Apart, the Myth of Race. It motivated two women in the city to initiate a plan to bring people together.
King said that the point of nonviolent civil protest was to create a tension in people's minds so that they would start to see things in a different way. And that's what happens at the Erase meetings.
They put this announcement in the newspaper, in the local newspaper, inviting the citizens to come together to talk. As I said, this was in June of 1993. So maybe the second or third meeting I decided that I would like to attend these public discussions, basically to find out what other people had to say, maybe to have some questions answered, and maybe also to ask questions of my own as to why persons from different cultural backgrounds would have animosity or prejudices. So the first time that I did attend the meeting, there was a very large number of people of diverse cultural backgrounds, and it turned out to be a very interesting discussion. Our founder, one of our founders, was there, and she initiated the meeting, and she encouraged people to voice their personal opinions.
She said, and signed herself White Woman Metairie, that her poor mother raised 7 kids without any help, and that black people ought to just get a job, and that her family all turned out all right. And it just struck me as a terrible thing if people around the city, black people and white people, but especially African Americans, if they read this article, her reaction to the article, and thought that many people, white people, felt the same way.
I'm so afraid that black people would read that letter and think that white people, all white people thought this.
I was working at the Times-Picayune at the time, and I saw the letters that were coming in. I don't think anger is the word. I think they were just so disgusting and so repulsive. You want to think that not very many people in the world think and feel that way, but having living proof of it right in front of you was just horrible.
If I would call a black person nigger, it wouldn't be nothing, they wouldn't bat an eye if I called them that. But if Paul would call somebody a nigger, it would be, oh, he better run for his life. but see, that's what it's all about. It's not how black people feel about what that skit.
My name is Glenn Abdullah. I've been a member of Eracism, I think since about 95. Okay. I was happy to hear about it, but you can have this kind of frank discussion. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with people of different races, especially with white people, and you can, you know, you can just about say what you want to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that.
Like many other people, I thought Erase was a bumper sticker, and then I saw this meeting on public access and went to a meeting, and it kind of was love at first sight after that.
She told me about this organization that she was attending meetings, told me about the bumper sticker, and I guess I had seen the bumper sticker. It was another meeting during the week that was being held up on City Park Avenue, and I actually went to both locations during the week.
I think that's love at first sight. I do too.
Suggesting that we find a way to signify to the community at large. And Brenda Thompson was working at the Times-Picayune at that time, and fielding phone calls was her job, and I guess answering some letters, also opening letters. And so Brenda read, of course, the White Woman Metarie's words, and then she read my letter, and she called me and said she'd like to help in the endeavor of finding a way to show that we're not all like White Woman Metairie. Something that was very evident, and that
I'm driving
Right.
in the middle lane, and my car stops. I mean, just stops. No amount of would do anything with it. And so I'm sitting there, rush hour, by the way, an accident waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting there, I'm saying, what do I do? No cell phone. I didn't own a cell phone then. This pickup truck parks right behind me, and he got out and he said, I'm going to, no, he parked on the lane on my right, and he said, no cars can pass by, so you're okay. There was a little, how do you say, mall, a little strip mall of 3 or 4 businesses. He said, pull in here while my truck is impeding any traffic from coming. Horns, attack that! You were hearing all that. By this time I was psyched out, so I pulled in there. By that time, George French had arrived, and he pulled in there too. And he said, you know, I saw you, and I said, I've got to come and see what's wrong. And I said, oh, this kind gentleman, he did all this for me. He stopped the traffic on rush hour and let me pull into this. He said, I said, that was so wonderful, thank you. What do I owe you? And he said, you don't owe me anything, lady. Your bumper sticker says it all. Well, I said, you know, that was a beautiful moment of recognition of the bumper sticker and what it stood for.
Like a lot of folks, I think I learned my racial bias from my parents. I had stolen a watermelon, but what she was angry with me was because the watermelon wasn't ripe. So that was the kind of the joke at that point. The second time, so that clearly is, you know, first of all, there was not a black person within 100 miles of this event. When I came to New Orleans, this was in the mid-90s, I wasn't sure how I felt about African Americans. I hadn't really lived in African American communities since I was quite young. And when I came to this city where the population was, at that point, 70% African American, I knew I was uncomfortable relating to African Americans, but I wasn't able to articulate for myself why that was. So I went to a meeting.
I thought when I attended the first meeting that I would just observe and I would take everything in, and I would just, you know, just what it's all about, check my comfort level for speaking to people I didn't know personally. The first, it was so engaging, the first meeting I started interacting.
Honestly, it really all comes down to those discussion meetings. Those meetings are so incredible. So many interesting things can happen. You never know where the discussion is going to lead. It doesn't matter what the topic is, you know.
I've been to probably over 1,000 erase meetings now, because, again, I feel like I'm like a born-again eracism guy.
And that orderly, facilitated discussion is really what makes it possible.
I really trust the process, and it really has worked for me, and I've seen it work for other folks.
It's the innovation that Erase has come up with that makes it possible for people to talk about these sensitive issues. Because you know that it's an environment of safety where the rule says that there are no personal attacks allowed.
I'm really impressed with the process that has developed over the years of, if you will, the rules or the guidelines for the meetings. The process of, number one, safety, people taking turns talking, which forces people to listen to the stories and the opinions of other people, is really a powerful process. And it's my belief that this process can work in all kinds of situations where there are conflicting groups or cultures.
You got to wait your turn. And so it's a great device, because you may raise your hand in the meeting to say something and you're like really agitated because someone else said something that you disagree with, but by the time the discussion comes back to you, then you've calmed down a little bit, you've heard what other people have had to say, and it ends up producing a more civil, a more fair and balanced discussion that allows a lot of multiple different viewpoints.
The Waverly School District is gaining national attention over what some students are calling a racist and insensitive pep rally.
Students dressed in blackface and acted out scenes of domestic violence at a school pep rally in front of parents, teachers, students, and administrators.
Especially like the last meeting we had, where there was just so many different layers and topics brought in to discuss the topic of the article.
The topic actually kind of hit close to home. I was kicked out of my high school for refusing to stand at a pep rally.
I've had instances where there have been profound changes, you know, the way I view things, the way I've looked at things, because of some of the things that were shared in a race. And I think I'm a much better person for it.
Skits were approved, and so basically, because Richard Simmons went to Brother Martin, for about a straight hour, they ripped on fat people and gay people. I mean, just blatant and disgusting, and just made me want to vomit.
Black people, white people, also of course Asians and Latinos and whoever else wanted to join, to sit across the table and be honest with each other and be willing to say why we're prejudiced, why we've gotten over this part but not this part, and we don't even know if we want to get over that part. Just some real honesty and how our prejudices showed up in the past, and believe it or not, that became hysterical, funny when people would confess some of what they were taught and actually bought into for a while.
So I couldn't see staff just not knowing what was going to be acted out.
For black people, I think they need this therapy more than anybody else. It's kind of therapeutic.
Different subjects that we're talking about, you know, like integration, school integration, you know, and school busing and things that for me go back like 50 years, kind of helps me get those latent, you know, feelings out of my system, brings them to the surface. I discuss them, and you know, you can let it go, you know, after 50.
When did it become okay for Black people to do blackface with Zulu and not okay for anybody else to do blackface? That's the same thing like Glenn said with the N-word. I don't like it as far as anybody doing it. I know very little about the history of blackface, but I don't like it in any context of any race of people doing it.
And only the blacks here in this town accept it. But when I was a cab driver and I bring African Americans from New York and other places and they see it, they're disgusted by it. And they don't look at it as favored. Now if you're going to represent Zulu, you should be looking like you're some kind of dignified warrior or something. You should be looking like grass. What I seen images when they had us in the movies, they had us looking like that. When they were showing African, they had us looking like that, with them kind of grass skirts on. You know, no, we hadn't learned how to weave clothes or nothing else. So it's they are making mockery of themselves and they're degrading their race, and I think they should get rid of it.
It's not protesting. It's not writing letters so much. It's really sitting down with other people and having conversations about really important topics that come up in the news or are historical. I think if more people in New Orleans thought we were more than a bumper sticker and came to the meetings, there would be a lot more open discussion just in general in the city about the issues of race that confront us.
I realized what it was. It's very precious moments that pass in your life, being a member of a race. That dialogue, which does not exist in everyday life, and it's there. The air permeates with the sky's the limit.
I have been faithfully attending these public discussions since 1993. And I believe I will continue to go to these discussions. I learned so much. Not only do I participate in the discussions, but I also learn from the other participants who come to these discussions. And I believe it was one of the most beneficial things that could have been started in the city to bring persons from different cultural backgrounds to come together.